Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you were there? And for a split second, it feels like a memory lapse or even a glitch. Or maybe you've looked at the stars and felt a tug, a deep ancient knowing that you are in this world, but you are definitely not of it. We ask the big questions on this show. But today we are asking the biggest one of all. What is this place? Is Earth a school designed for the evolution of your soul? Is it a highly advanced simulation running on cosmic hardware? Or is it a prison planet designed to keep us trapped in a loop? Today on Rooted Frequency, we are looking at what we know, what we speculate, and what has been theorized for thousands of years. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Rooted Frequency, and I'm your host, Tiffany Haney. I wanted to do this episode because I feel like the collective consciousness is shifting right now. We are seeing things, whether it's through the lens of AI technology or through ancient spiritual texts that are making us question the nature of reality itself. It can be overwhelming. If you go down the prison planet rabbit hole on Reddit, and maybe you haven't heard of this theory, but today you're going to learn about it, it's kind of terrifying and might leave you feeling like, what's the point? And if you only look at the Earth School perspective, you might feel like maybe you're bypassing the very real suffering in the world when you're only looking from that 5D perspective. So we're going to ground this. We're going to look at three major theories: the school, the simulation, and the prison. I want you to listen with an open mind, but more importantly, listen with your intuition. See which one of these resonates within your body, because usually the truth isn't just one of them. It's a mix of all three. Let's start with the most widely accepted spiritual view: Earth as a school. This is that perspective that feels the most empowering for many of us and seems to be the central thesis around why we're here amongst spiritual people. It suggests that you, as a soul, chose to come here to Earth, that you looked at the curriculum of Earth, the duality, the heartbreak, the joy, the physical density, and you said, sign me up for that. I need to learn that. Basically, that you chose what sort of challenges you were going to have in this life because you wanted to achieve something. You wanted to learn something, perhaps surpass some sort of obstacle that you weren't able to in other universes. Gary Zukov, the author of The Seat of Your Soul, put it beautifully. He said, "The universe is your tutor and your classroom is your life." In this theory, nothing's random. Your difficult relationship, that's a teacher. That financial struggle, there's a lesson or a value or trust. What we know and speculate, growth often comes from resistance. Just like a muscle needs resistance to grow, our souls seem to need the resistance of 3D reality to evolve. I always tell people when they seem to have a call for healing that they probably have had a lot of trauma in their life, because one of the key things to being able to connect with other humans is through shared experience, right? And the shared experience of trauma hits different. It touches you deeply. And that's where we can see karma, soul contracts, those things fit right there. The idea is that before you were born, you sat down with your soul council, your guides, and you mapped out the key milestones of this life, not to suffer for suffering's sake, but to gain wisdom. The takeaway here is that if Earth is a school, then graduating doesn't mean escaping. It means mastering. It means mastering your emotions, mastering your reactions, and learning how to love unconditionally in a world that makes it really hard to do so. Now let's pivot to something that sounds like science fiction, but it's actually being taken very seriously by physicists and philosophers, especially if you start to go down that quantum rabbit hole that we've gone down in many an episode. Simulation theory. We talk about AI a lot on this channel, and as we watch AI generate videos that are pretty much indistinguishable from reality, we have to ask, if we can create simulated worlds, what makes us think we aren't in one? If AI keeps developing at the rate that it is, it only makes sense that someday we are going to get to a point where we can run a simulation or something that you immerse yourself in, maybe for fun, but that it would be indistinguishable from reality. And that's frightening. The philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed a famous argument. He said that one of three things must be true. 1, civilizations go extinct before they get the tech to run simulations. 2, they have the tech, but they choose not to run them. Or 3, we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation right now. Think about it. The Mandela effect, where masses of people remember history differently. Think about glitches in the Matrix, synchronicities that are statistically impossible. I also come back to simulation theory when we talk about, the whole Truman Show feeling that the world is kind of designed around us. Well, if we are perhaps playing ourselves in this reality, then it would, right? Yet we're all souls playing ourselves, so it's not all about us, but we're the central characters in our story, the storyline. In spiritual circles, we've called reality Maya or illusion for thousands of years. The Hindus said it, the Buddhists said it. They didn't just use the word computer. They used the word dream. So if this is a simulation, it changes how we play the game. You stop taking things so personally. You realize that you are the player, not the avatar. The avatar, your body, your ego, might get hurt, but the player, your consciousness, is theoretically safe outside of the game. Which, of course, brings up the concept of NPCs, or non-player characters. And this is a hot thing on TikTok, people talk about. But most people have met somebody who fits in this idea of an NPC. People who aren't that deep. People who have no desire to break out of their box. They're good in their job. Everything's like just good, Like, who cares really about discovering why we're here? I have to go to work. But they have zero interest in going deeper than that. Could it be that some people are background code? It's a controversial idea, but from a simulation standpoint, it asks us, are you playing the game, or is the game playing you? As I said before, a lot of these things have been talked about in our previous podcasts, but one we have not touched on yet is Earth as a prison. Maybe take a breath. Like, actually close our eyes and inhale. Because this theory, we're stepping out of the light-coded, inspirational part of the conversation. We're stepping more into the shadow. This theory is one people usually felt in their guts before they understood it intellectually. And I think a lot of us have thought it before and didn't even know it was a theory or didn't ever put it into words. The prison planet theory. And before we go further, do not be afraid. It's meant to explain why fear feels so profitable in this world. And like I always say, I think there's small truths to all of these things. And one thing we can definitely take from the prison planet theory is a more positive way to view our reality and live, which we'll go into after we discuss this a little bit more. So prison planet theory suggests that Earth is not primarily a school for growth, but a containment system, a kind of energetic farm, not for bodies, for consciousness. According to this idea, human beings generate something valuable. Not money, not labor, emotion. And that is something that we've touched on even with AI conversation, where the one thing that we have as humans that AI doesn't is our ability to feel our emotions. And very specifically, dense emotions, heavy emotions. And you know how different emotions feel different ways. If you really tune into another's energy, you can sense when they are feeling rage or grief or fear. Those dense emotions, also shame, despair, anxiety. This theory says that those are not accidental feelings. They're cultivated. And this has been a bigger conversation on social media in the past year, but this idea is not new. Versions of the idea go all the way back to ancient Gnosticism. The Gnostics believed the material world was not created by the true source. They believed in an ultimate, unknowable God, infinite, whole, loving. And beneath that, a fractured intelligence, a false creator. They called it the demiurge. The demiurge didn't create from love. It created from imitation, from insecurity, from wanting to be God without understanding God. And according to the texts, the demiurge wasn't alone. There were helpers, enforcers, administrators, the archons. Their name literally translates to rulers. In Gnostic writings, the archons weren't demons with horns. They were described more as system keepers, wardens of the material realm. They were entities that thrived on ignorance, confusion, and emotional turbulence. And not by stabbing us, but by keeping us distracted. And I think the reason this theory hits so hard with people is because as you go through, it's like, is everything in our reality designed to keep us distracted? Check. We'll keep going through. Fast forward to modern interpretations, and you'll hear a word pop up. Loosh. Loosh is described as an emotional energy that's released during intense experiences, especially suffering. So think about all of the things that we've been through. And on this earth, historically, wars, trauma, public outrage, our fear-based news cycles that run 24/7, our debt, keeping most of the country in survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, and algorithms that reward anger more than peace. If humans were batteries, they would be constantly plugged into a socket of stress. So the theory suggests that as long as we're fighting one another, blaming each other, fearing each other, something benefits. And that reincarnation, instead of being a sacred choice, becomes a reset loop. That we have our memory wiped and are dropped back into the game. The same lessons again, the same wounds, a different costume. And not because we failed something, we don't even have the opportunity to pass or master because the system needs us producing the loosh. It's theorized that when people pass and all the stories of seeing the bright white light, that's a distraction and trick to get us to walk through, and it has our soul consent to coming back here again. And that seeing our loved ones is a trick to get us to keep going so that we come through. And it definitely lines up with déjà vu. If we literally have been here before, over and over and over. So, I know. That theory is a bummer. I mean, it's a lot. And I want to be careful here because the danger itself isn't the theory. The danger is losing your agency inside of it, to get carried away with it. So I want to ground it. Whether or not there are literal archons, and whether or not there's an actual energy harvest happening, look at the architecture of our world. Does it reward peace? Or does it reward outrage? Does it encourage sovereignty or dependency? Does it nourish the nervous system or keep it constantly activated? This always makes me think of the movie Monsters, Inc. If you have kids or you just like, Disney movies, I do. But on Monsters, Inc., if you haven't seen it, which I guess, spoiler alert, okay? But the kids are running, the monsters need the power from the kids. So they go and scare them. And the screams are powering up their city. Well, in the end, they discover that laughter actually gives like 4 times more power, and they could have had, these happy kids, so they could be going in through their closets, like making them smile and laugh and giggle. It really kind of seems like a very strong metaphor for prison theory. And obviously, there's so many different ways on this planet to keep us in prison. The belief that we're powerless, being addicted to being angry, outsourcing our authority to systems that don't love us, and identifying more with fear than awareness. So many people are so afraid to speak out or leave their box. We can't let fear drive our lives. Because regardless if prison theory is real or not, and I don't think it is, I do believe there's something like loosh. There is toxic, heavy energy, and there are energy vampires. And perhaps these archons are who we always say are the lizard people. I mean, that kind of all lines up. I just don't buy into the endless loop part of it. But it does make sense to me that maybe a little of everything's true. Like, we choose to come here and that we are aware that there's good and evil on this planet and then our memory's wiped. But we're coming here in order to engage in that, to learn the lessons, because everywhere else that we go is all light. So this is kind of like the one place we can choose to go with these darker challenges. And then once we get here, maybe people write these theories because somewhere deep in their soul, there's truth to them, is why, they also like show up in so many different religions in different ways. That makes sense to me. So to me, these things are beautiful reminders of how important it is to control your frequency, to have ownership of your resonance. Do not let anyone else have power over the frequency you are emitting. I do believe that we can heal with our frequency, with our collective vibes and individually, way more powerfully on a collective level. But I also believe there is something very toxic to those heavy emotions. I think it's tied to a lot of disease. I've seen it where people have come to me for healing and basically have like energy stuck in their body, and it's things from trauma, fears, anger that they never let go of. These things literally masticize within the body. So if there is, let's just say like an energy prison, not a looped one, but a prison that we can put ourselves in, how do we escape? Well, we don't escape with violence or fear. You escape by becoming unusable to the system. You stop feeding it with your emotional charge. You stop reacting on cue. You stop letting outrage dictate your inner weather. Stop letting the algorithm decide what you see and what upsets you. Sovereignty is quiet. It's regulated. It's discerning. A calm nervous system is the rebellion. Presence is a jailbreak. Because whether this world is a school, a test, or something far stranger, one thing's clear. Anything that feeds on fear loses its power the moment you remember who you are. So, I don't know. What do we think? What is this place really? A school? A simulation? Or a prison? Well, I'll share with you my honest truth. And it lands when I go quiet and really listen with my intuition. I don't think we need to know which theory is right. It's more about which theory we are living from. Because each framework reveals something very real. And each one can become a trap if you cling to it too tightly. So if we start with Earth as a school, because it's most familiar to us, Earth School says you're here to learn, here to grow, and here to mature through experience. really, this is the hero's journey model. We see it in so many movies. Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Lion King. You leave home, you suffer, you lose people, you face trials, and eventually you return wiser. Even spiritually, this model is everywhere. We say to one another, everything happens for a reason. Your soul chose this life. Always bringing up lessons and karma and contracts, and there is truth here. Pain, trauma, it does teach. Contrast does sharpen awareness. And we do mature through friction and experiences. But this type of thinking can quietly turn toxic. Because if everything's a lesson, then suffering becomes something you're supposed to endure indefinitely. You can actually start spiritualizing harm. You can stay in cycles longer than necessary because you think, I just haven't learned it yet. And at its worst, the school model turns into spiritual passivity. Just endure. Just accept. Just wait. And if we're constantly putting out those energies, when is the good going to come? When we are telling the universe that right now we are waiting. And right now we are accepting of our lives and our circumstance. And then there's Earth as a simulation. And this one is always more fun to talk about, but it also hits different. The simulation theory says reality is coded, that consciousness precedes matter, and perception shapes our outcome, shapes the world. This is seen on The Matrix, Westworld, various episodes of Black Mirror, or Inception. Even musically, we can say that it shows up everywhere. Lyrics about waking up, breaking the loop, seeing behind the veil. And isn't that so many things we also say to each other in spirituality with the Great Awakening? Plus, physics backs this up. We know that observation changes outcome. That reality behaves more like probability than solidity. That the universe responds to awareness. So this model gives people agency. That you're not just here to suffer. You can reprogram your beliefs. You can change your trajectories. You can crack the code. You can manifest. But there's a shadow side. If everything's a simulation, humanity can start to feel optional. Pain can feel unreal. People can become NPCs in your storyline. And then you end up bypassing grief, bypassing empathy, and turn life into a game instead of a lived experience. And at its very worst, the simulation model disconnects you from your heart. Really, it turns you into an AI. And finally, Earth as a prison. The theory that I myself, for sure, I don't want to sit with. Earth as a prison. It shows up in The Truman Show, The Hunger Games, and in so much music. Songs about being trapped, about being controlled, watched, drained. This theory says something about this system is inverted. Fear is profitable, division is engineered, and liberation requires awareness. And the reason this gets so scary and uncomfortable is because there are many systems that benefit from fear. We see them all the time. Cycles that keep people exhausted, indebted, and distracted. Most of us live in them. And there are incentives that reward anxiety all over the place. That part isn't metaphysical. It's observable. But here's the danger to completely buying into that theory and that theory alone. If you only see Earth as a prison, you start identifying as a victim. You see enemies everywhere. You give your power to whatever you believe is controlling you. And at its worst, this prison model replaces sovereignty with paranoia. This happens a lot when people go down conspiracy rabbit holes. I am a truther, always seeking the truth, and many conspiracy theories have truth to them. And the trick is, we can't go around just only seeing the conspiracy. We have to see the spiritual aspect, both sides that balance the good, the bad, the light, the dark. So here's where it all lands for me. Earth can feel like a prison when we believe that we are powerless. Earth feels like a school. Most everything can be a lesson. And if we look at it like we believe we are growing and learning, it feels very much like a school. And also, Earth feels like a simulation. When we realize what we're capable of, what we can create, and I mean as a society, the things we can create with technology, but also the things that we can create with our minds, the things we can manifest. None of these theories are wrong. They're perspectives. And perspectives shape reality. The mistake is picking one and collapsing into it. We have to remain open. Because I would guess that none of these are correct. And the truth about the universe is far more complex for us to wrap our little human brains around. But all of these things help us put together pieces. And I often say that this journey in life, we are putting together the puzzle pieces. And I don't think we'll ever have a complete puzzle. But I do think that we can get parts of the puzzle completed within our own lives that make us feel successful and like we completed certain parts of our journey. That we have a pretty good understanding and grounded reality view in those areas. I really don't think Earth is one thing. Most likely, it's a very layered experience. That school is for the soul, simulation for the mind, and the system only becomes a prison when our consciousness falls asleep inside of it. The question isn't, what is Earth? But becomes, who are you being inside of it? Victim consciousness sees bars, restrictions, limitations. Student consciousness sees lessons, opportunities. Creator consciousness sees code. And sovereignty is the ability to move between all three without getting stuck in them. And that's not escaping the matrix, that's mastering it. And maybe that's the real initiation. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these three theories resonates with your intuition right now? Are you in a season of learning, hacking reality, or breaking free? And listen, if you want to go deeper, if you want the conversations that go even further than what I can share here, come join our community over at Patreon at patreon.com/rootedfrequency. That is where you really get into the weeds of these topics. We also support each other's awakenings, and it's where you can support this show so that I can keep bringing you this content. This hard-hitting content. Again, new episodes land here every single Thursday, so check your notifications. Make sure that bell is rung. I'm Tiffany Haney. Keep seeking, staying grounded, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Everything is connected. Energy, science, quantum physics. This beautiful practice of being rooted in the frequency of love, light, and unity. We are invited